Jason, I was on the Ripple training show, whatever, the other day, and Hosma, thank you, Chad. Hosma sent a signal, a question about the Fenwick framer. I was like, geez, why does this thing keep following me around? And when I explained the origin of it, it always involves you.
Yes, my hair. Yes,
and I don't know if you heard it, but it was pretty funny.
I did not hear it. I will graciously accept a link, and I will enjoy it thoroughly.
I'll try and see if I can.
It was good.
John Travolta called. He wants his hair back.
Too bad. I will never be a cue ball, and he did not sing very well in that last commercial. Sorry.
So just checking in, since it's one of the first days, have you changed your view, Keely, to on deck from voting questions?
Yeah. So what I've done is I've broken out the mobile Mukana, and that was Josh's suggestion when I was chatting with him last night, and I've blown that up super big. So I'm going to try that and see how I like it.
Excellent.
Why not try something new?
I know, whatever works
Tuesday.
for you. Yeah.
I'm also really bad for trying new things when I'm live and under pressure, but I can't help it.
That's the exciting trial by fire part of this.
Yeah. I'm a nerd, and I have to fiddle with things.
Many years ago, I was training a guy to do some live switching for me when I was going to be away, and he had the nerve to say, like literally out loud, he goes, "Yeah, just so you know, I have a really bad habit of pushing buttons when I'm not supposed to." I was like, "Oh, what are you doing here? You're in the wrong seat. Get out."
When I get nervous, I get a little punchy.
And Judy.
One of the smarter things I've done in the last week is take the X32 manual, whose format I despise, and had it bound and had bookmarks put into it at Kinko's. It's like $20. Best money I've spent recently.
It was Jerry Maguire showing up in the middle of the night, wanting to print his manifesto and make it look like Catcher in the Rye.
I was inspired.
You're that guy.
Tom Cruise was born inspired.
No, I think Xenu inspired him.
Oh, don't. Now. Is that religion or sign? Never mind.
Neither.
No, that's sci-fi.
It's not
what are you
religion.
talking about?
It's true. It is sci-fi. If your religion is newer than baseball, warning.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about media, digital production. Our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on, and today we'll talk about MidJorney. A bunch of us have played with it a fair bit, and we're going to answer your questions. We'll talk a little bit about how to get started, how we use it, where we think it's going, but also really dig into your questions. So if you've got questions for the first hour is general discussion. So any questions around things other than MidJorney, and second hour is MidJorney. But if you've got questions, go ahead and ask them now. And also ask them, you vote on those questions. Voting on the questions make a big difference. We actually answer them in order based on voting. So if you vote on those questions, it's going to make a big difference on how we manage that. And also, just as a quick note, we started this morning. It was a lot of fun. We're getting up a little earlier, getting in a little earlier, and just chatting about the questions. So if you ask those questions early, we will have had time to think about at least some of them in the morning. So ask them early, vote on them early. We start at the top and just go, oh, what do we got here? It's kind of more of a informal discussion about that. So I think we're starting right now about 6:15 Pacific Standard Time. Before you know it, it'll be like, we're going to start at 4 a.m. and then we're going to talk about the whole show. And then we're going to do the show. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about the show. And this is
Howard Stern.
This is how this is all going to go. As soon as I saw it, because I had so much fun this morning talking about it with everybody, I was like, oh, this is going to start at 5:30 within a month. Anyway, so anyway, that's how this is all going to go. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Keely, what do we have?
And there goes my life. This is Jacob Goodnight from Indianapolis, Indiana. He's asking, when shopping for monitors, what is your preferred screen size and resolution for a multi-monitor home office setup? Any brands or models you recommend?
Go ahead, Chris.
Jacob, I lean larger when it comes to the monitors. We even set up a few edit suites back in the day with the giant Cinema 30-inch displays, a pair of them. That ended up being super big. There was neck fatigue at the end of the day looking back and forth. My currently go toward 27-inch and 4 and 5K displays. However, in a world of, but I'm in post, in a world of streaming, I think it's super important to have a few 1920 by 1080 resolution monitors. There's so much of what we're doing that goes out at HD, and it's good to be able to look at something, corner to corner, full raster, the way it is meant to be. So I think it's good to have both resolutions around.
Go ahead, Tom.
For my multi-view, I use a 43-inch monitor, and everything else is 27. So that seems to work out quite well on the desk.
Go, Jeffrey.
Yeah, for me, it really depends on the job that I'm doing. Like, for instance, if at here, I basically have a 4K monitor. This is a ViewSonic NVIDIA Sync monitor on my right side. On my left side is an old Asus 10. It's basically 1080, and yeah, they've got different color profiles, and of course, each monitor will have a different color profile to it. So if I'm doing like a Photoshop and I want to take a look at the color, I can move it from one to the other. The other monitor I'm working on, I've been playing with different size monitors in the middle here because my camera is right here, and I want to put a monitor behind it because in the studio downstairs, I have a big 50-inch monitor in which the camera is in front of, so I can have that look at you, look at me type teleprompter type situation. So looking for a 10-inch monitor, that's going to be 1080p, but it's definitely important to have different types of size and different types of monitors so you can just see what other people will see. Just same thing with audio, is different headphones, different speakers to hear the sounds and see what you might have missed.
Yeah, for a while, for the last 10 years, I've kind of standardized around 24-inch monitors just because they're modular and I have lots of them. So right now I have 5 or 6 of them here. And so I have lots of them on arms. I like them on arms so I can just kind of move them around, kind of get them to where I want, have them all pointed wherever I want them to be pointed. Lots of 24-inch monitors on arms. A lot of mine are actually 1080. I don't need them at 4K. I am putting a 4K monitor in. I'm about to put a teleprompter in that's 43 inches and it'll be larger right in front of me so that I have stuff for the show. But I don't usually need a lot of that to on my day-to-day work. So, and I'm actually creating a whole nother workstation over here that I can route stuff to so that when I do work, I can turn over here and do the work. And then when I come on to meetings, I can have the bigger teleprompter with all the stuff that I want. So a little bit we'll see how that goes. It's an experiment. It works in my head. Next question.
This comes in from Kenneth Jones in Seattle, Washington. LastPass continues to be in the news, and it's not good. I'm favoring Bitwarden these days. What do you think?
I'll go with Keely.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a big fan of what 1Password has been doing, and here I am answering a question with saying no, go to 1Password. The reason being is that I've been reading up on how they handle things with this adding the secret key. There's a really good article on their blog that I would invite people to have a look at and talk about why that then scrambles everything that's in their cloud. So if somebody actually can break into your password vault on their server, it's all meaningless gibberish. So I believe them in what they're saying. And I think that gives you an extra layer of security that maybe you don't have with other password managers. But I'm looking forward to hearing what all the other panelists think.
Go ahead, Jason.
So Bitwarden is a just fine choice. All of them are going to be trying to do what's called ephemeral Diffie-Hellman key differentiation with perfect forward secrecy. You know, that nice little just rolls right off the tongue thing. So the first part is choose a new password manager, but more importantly, you then have to change every password because the issue with LastPass is that your blob is out in the wild. So I wouldn't just knee jerk this. You know, pick one that you like and then get to work.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I've never gone for the password manager. I've been dragging my heels all this time and trying to manage it. But Chrome does a pretty good way of managing the passwords that I use for websites. I do not use it to store passwords for any financial arrangements, brokerage houses, banks, anything like that. So the the stuff where the big bucks are stored is not accessible through any password manager. That is stored up here in this feeble brain. But for all the stupid websites that require a login, I use Google Chrome and I use Samsung's password manager on my phone, and that stores it encryptedly. Another nice thing that Chrome password manager does is it wherever you open Chrome and log into your Chrome account with two-factor authentication, you will have access to, it'll load that password list in. And it also informs you of any passwords in your list that have been exposed on the internet. It checks it against an exposed list. It goes out to the dark web and encrypts your password, and then encrypts the list of exposed passwords that are for sale on the dark web. And then it compares those encrypted hashes against each other, and it never has your exposed passwords in the wild. So it exposed those, and then it tells you which of your passwords, when you go to the password manager, may have been compromised on the net. So that's handy.
Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, I think Bitwarden's a good solution if you have clients and you have to deal with multiple vaults and you've got a lot of data. Bitwarden's probably the way to go. Actually, a friend of mine who's in IT just spent the last month moving all of his data out of LastPass. So it was a lot of work. You got to regenerate one-time passwords, all that sort of stuff. It is a pain, but it sounds like that's the way to go. For personal stuff, I've finally moved all of my data out of 1Password because I just didn't want to pay a subscription, and I don't like Electron apps. I've moved it into Keychain on my Mac, and they finally support one-time passwords. There's some annoying things that it doesn't do, but for the most part, it was a fairly smooth transition. I got all my data imported.
Yeah, and I'm still in LastPass and getting ready to move after the last revelation. I changed my password immediately on the last one, but didn't move because I was like, oh, it's going to take a long time. I have a lot of passwords, and my problem is everything is hashed. So I don't have, because I've had LastPass word for 15 years or whatever. So I have, or 10 years or something, and so I don't like changing over is going to be a thing. I think I'm actually leaning towards, I have to admit, Keychain. Because I was like, how often do I use a PC? So anyway, I how often do I do something cross-platform? And so I may do a mixture of Keychain and Chrome, just because and 1Password is where I'm leaning towards, so I don't do that. Bitwarden I think is great, but those are the things I'm thinking about right now. Next question.
On the panel today, Alexander Knight from Vancouver, BC. What lighting strategy is suggested to minimize how tired your client looks on camera? Should I shine a small directional light to try to get more light under their eyes?
Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, I just wanted to preface this. I think I've asked this question before, but I didn't document the lights that people suggested. I'm in a really, really tight space. I've made some changes to the setup in the living room where I have people sit. And so one of the cameras that faces the client is in the corner, and it's in a very, very tight space. So I'm thinking of a small light. I haven't talked to the client about wearing makeup yet, so I guess that's another situation. But he's always complaining about the eye bags. And then the other issue is because he has darker skin too, it's just getting the light in this sort of area, but I also don't want to blind him either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
A ring light is typically the solution for this, but if your client wears glasses, that can be problematic because then you'll see the little circles reflected in their glasses. Because the ring light surrounds the image, the lens, it doesn't generate any shadows in the lens, so it washes out all those wrinkles and fills in the bags and under the eyes. But if you do wear glasses occasionally, there are things like this that is what I'm using to fill under my hat. It's a little USB device, fits into any USB connector because it's got a USB connector on the bottom of it. Oops. And it has a touch back, and it's dimmable. So you can just touch the back and dim it down to any level, and it's balanced this one's balanced for tungsten. And so I use that just on a little a USB extension to fill under the hat, and you can position it just about anywhere. So it's very handy for that.
And Bill?
This has been a problem forever. That's why in cinematography they call little eye lights OBs, because it goes back to Merle Oberon, who was like an early film star. There's got to be something that's coming from an angle of incidence that is below the slope of your eyes. If, like me, you have relatively deep eye ridges, to get some sort of light in there. My key light is coming from about 45 degrees up. But if I didn't have the two fill lights that I have on my desk mount, and they're just inexpensive panel lights. They're about maybe 12 inches wide and 3 inches tall, but those I use to fill up this internal stuff so that you can see inside and that my eyes have some light. So it's a specific thing. Doesn't matter what kind of light you use, as long as it's color balanced with the rest of the stuff, but getting something below that highlight position and getting something to fill up, do underfill, is a really good thing if you want people to look less baggy that way.
Go ahead, Liberty.
And I mentioned this prior to the show of like just concealer can do wonders. So having a shade that is just almost like almost skin tone, so match like right under there, in addition to, of course, all the light information, but it will go a really long way. And also some foundation and a shade lighter so that right here on the cheeks, so when they're talking and smile, that it draws the attention there versus right there under the bags, under the eyes.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really popular, if you look at this photo here, this is are these right here. So this is these are little Roscoe light panels or light pads, I think they're called, and you can there's lots of different ones. What's interesting about them is the way that they work is that they are actually etched glass with edge LEDs. So it basically illuminates the glass, and the glass kind of gives a big, nice, soft light. So you put these on either side of a monitor or something like that, and that's going to do a kind of a fill going up to make that work. So that's another one that's pretty popular for a lot of broadcasters. Next question.
This comes in from Grant Whitehead in Adelaide, Australia. Netflix is doing a live comedy special that will be available on demand afterwards, but also doing a pre and post show that won't be. What do you think of this model? And there's a link to Netflix.
Go ahead, Jason.
I think it's fascinating. Also, I think they chose their talent very carefully because people are going to tune in purely, at least Netflix hopes, for just kind of the off-the-cuff stuff that Chris Rock will say. So I'm for them, yeah.
Go ahead, Liberty.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how they are now kind of being like TV with like creating this special event. I've done a lot of, if you think about Netflix and when a new show comes out, Twitter is where those conversations, they have watch parties. So now they're bringing that watch party experience into their app. I'm very interested in what the data will look like of people who are actually tuning in live, both the entire experience to see about that. And as Jason said, they've got all the celeb power. So it'll be interesting to see if this is a model that they'll continue to use, especially with the news that they just made with just shutting down people's accounts if they're sharing passwords. So I'm highly looking at this. I'm interested in this move.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it works. I think the pre and post show will probably interest folks. My whole thing is that I've worked on a lot of comedy specials, and the thing is that the one you see on Netflix, the ones that you see there right now, are usually about somewhere between 75 and 80% of the show. They got rid of the parts that didn't work, right? And so the issue is that we now get to watch the part that didn't work, and we don't get any interaction. So it's not like we're part of the show. I'm not sure why I would spend time watching something that was rougher than I could have just watched it later when it was edited down to what was funny. So I think that I think that that's the problem I have, is that I don't know, without interaction, I don't know why you do live. Like I think that's the thing. Without, you do sports, breaking news, and interaction. Those are the three things that we think about with live. And when you don't do one of those three, I kind of go, we'll see. And I think that Netflix would do really well if they did the watch party, being able to schedule a lot of people. And I don't mean 30, like like Apple does, like 32 or something like that. I mean, being able to schedule thousands of people to watch something at the same time is a huge business model, because then they can interact with each other and they can be part of all of those things. And so I get the interaction with each other, but I think that the live portion just means it's just going to be rougher around the edges. But to Liberty's point, if something goes sideways or anyone wants to talk about it, I think that you can do it because we're all watching at the same time. But there's lots of ways to solve that other than going live. Go ahead, Liberty.
And do we know, I didn't see it in the article, is there going to be any chat functionality within the app so that you'll have that experience? Because that's the whole part of it. Yeah. So
I think that what they're trying to do is have it be something. I mean, part of what makes sports valuable is the fact that everyone's watching at the same time, and you're tweeting about the referee, and you're doing all the other stuff, and that was a great call and everything else. But again, for something that isn't a sport or isn't news, I feel like I think they would get as many viewers, if not more viewers, if they just did a premiere of it so that everyone could watch it at the same time. And I'll be curious to know whether it's really, really live. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be. But I would like to know if there are people actually in there that are tweeting out that I'm here and this is the picture of it actually happening, because most things we see that are live are, kind of as live. I mean, like the late night shows, for instance, they feel like they're live, but they're shot about 4 hours before. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. Next question.
Alexander Knight from Vancouver, BC is back. And on our panel, how do you delete media from the library on the ATEM? There doesn't appear to be a delete button. Selecting an image and pressing delete on the keyboard doesn't do anything.
Go ahead, Courtney.
There is a delete button. You just hover your mouse over the image, and there's a little X that appears in the upper right-hand corner. Click on the X, and it goes away from your media pool. You can look up, there is a place where it stores the actual, if you save your startup setup, there's a place where you can look where it stores those images, and you can edit that. But it's easier just to click the little X in the media pool.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, of course, Courtney's got it completely correct, and there's the little X.
There you go. Alexander.
Yeah, I'm not getting it, but I'm wondering if it's because the media player engine that I'm on right now. So does it not let you delete it while it's active? Is that the problem?
I don't think so. Maybe, but are you? But you're talking about the media pool, right? In the ATEM.
Yeah. So I can see. So still one is not actively on right now. I can see the X, but on the second image, there's no X. I can't actually delete it. Weird.
I believe sorry for butting in, if it is loaded into your media player and not in the media library, I don't think you can delete it while it's on the air.
Okay, that's it then.
There you go. Next question.
This comes from Mark Giuliani from Washington, D.C. I'm working with 6K and 4K Blackmagic RAW files in Resolve from 3 cams and green screen. After applying a plugin to remove noise, playback is choppy. What should I be recording in? Should I be recording in another format? And what can I do with the current footage to make playback smoother?
Good, Bill.
So pixel by pixel noise reduction software is some of the most intensive processing that most video images go under. And a lot of these modern systems are such that they try to do everything on the fly, and that can be incredibly difficult for the camera or for your computer, your whole system, to process those files and plug them out in real time. For me, whenever I have any kind of choppy playback on something and I know I've applied any kind of filter to that's going to take a lot of processing, is to bake it in by exporting the file and play that back. I know you can't work on it live, but once you export it to your desktop as a single file. All those calculations have been done once, and that'll usually play back much smoother than trying to play it off your active timeline.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
In addition to that, moving to a lower resolution or a proxy codec can allow you to continue to work live while being able to switch back when you're finished.
Yeah, and you can also selectively render stuff out, pre-render stuff out that is going to inside of Resolve, so that you'll pre-render that, and then as long as you don't change it, if you don't change anything, you can change things above it actually, but you can't change things if it's doing some kind of compositing layer. So anything below that, so you can pre-render those things, and that way you don't have to render them out and bring them back in. They're just in there as a playback. So that a lot of apps have that, and Resolve does as well. So you can pre-render those assets, and then as long as you don't change anything related to those assets, they will stay the same way. If you do a proxy, that's going to make it even faster because it's going to play out, and it's going to build it into a format it knows it can play out well. Proxies in Resolve have been a little bit unstable for me, where I lose audio sync badly. So just be a little careful with those. The other thing to look at is drive speed. So even though it's a processor heavy issue, it's the way that it brings that audio, that video back. And when I'm doing 6K and 4K BRAW, the minimum drive speed or the minimum drive input for me is 2 gigs per second. that is the minimum that I'm going to work at. I use these little RAIDs that I learned from Fenwick. These are OWC little NVMe RAIDs. These have 4, and I get about 2,000 on these things. But that's the minimum drive speed. Now the one inside my studio is 5 gigs, so it goes even faster when I do those kind of things. But you want to really think about that speed because it's really, really important. Because it'll make everything run a little bit faster, because delivering those frames faster for the CPU. And the other thing to look at is what processor you're using. Are you using an M1, M2 on a Mac? Those are going to make a big difference. If you're using it, I don't really consider, if you're doing 6K and 4K, I wouldn't consider, and you're doing any kind of work, I wouldn't consider anything less than an M1 to be fast enough to do what you want to do. And then finally, RAM. Because it's got to save all that stuff up in RAM. So make sure if you're doing anything that's slowing down, look at how much you bought. If you have an M1, it's how much you bought. You can't put more in. so anyway, but this is one of the reasons that you might want to buy more RAM with your machines. Next question.
Alexander Knight from Vancouver, BC. I recorded internally on my ATEM Extreme ISO and didn't realize when I hit record that I had the wrong file name. I renamed the project file and all individual files to have all the correct episode numbers. Now the timeline is offline. How do I relink?
Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, so I clearly got myself into some trouble here. I guess there's more to the DaVinci Resolve project file because I did rename all the files. I thought that would fix it. I opened it up and now it says all media offline. So yeah, I'm not sure what to do at this point.
Here you go, Jason.
Okay, if you really wanted to do this, which you shouldn't, you could actually go in and find and replace in the XML. And that is a crazy, crazy way to do it. I think your better way is to go into the media import, and you should be able, once you re-import it, it should automatically dedupe. I found that Resolve is actually surprisingly good at that.
You also should be able to relink those files, like force relink. You should be able to relink the files. So if you right click on each one of them, you should be able to relink those. But I think that the XML is there. One of the things that I do a lot when I'm working on projects is I use folder systems so that if I get something with the wrong name, I don't have to rename it, because the XML inside of projects is complicated. And so a lot of times I try to keep them in a folder that's properly, and that's how I build all my systems, is for folders. That way I can throw anything I want into them. I still try to name the files correctly, but if I don't name the files correctly or they come to me incorrect, I just move them into that folder. I can still find everything I need to find, but I don't need to change the name of the files, because there's oftentimes in things I've worked on, there's so many dependencies, as Jason outlined, that you don't want to change those because you don't know where they all are. But in the XML, you could try it. I'd love to have you try the XML and tell us if it worked, and then try to relink. It'd be great. Next question.
This is coming in from Tony Mobley of Noonan, Georgia. I am operating outside of my wheelhouse. My house of worship is doing a live play in an actual theater. Do I need to bring in internet recording and streaming to Zoom? What is required or other infrastructure is needed?
Go ahead, Liberty.
So, Tony, I wish you were on the panel today, but we can always have this discussion in after hours. The first thing is just really setting expectations. You've shared that it's a little bit outside of your wheelhouse. So if there's someone that can come with you who has that expertise of like, yes, first you need to check. Does the theater have internet, and actually do a site check, going there to test the speed and all of that to see if you are good there. 2, I was wondering, do you have to stream it? Is it possible for you during the show to be able to record it so that, yes, you can do with your setup, with your phones or cameras, whatever you have equipment wise, and then get that edited and send it out? Because I do know from your community, your house of worship, that there are people that won't necessarily be able to get there. My concern is just that the ability to get all of those pieces, because if you're in a theater and the sound and all of those elements, now if you can set the expectation that they say, no, we really do want to go live, getting even doing it on a mobile device and having one shot, but definitely setting the expectation for what the experience will be like, keeping it simple is the best way to go, instead of trying to pull all these elements that have so many things that could arise, and without having people there that can mitigate those risks. So my recommendation is keeping it simple.
Good, Bill.
That's a very good suggestion. I will say, remember too, the rule that we talk about here on Office Hours a lot, which is the audio is carrying more information typically, even in a service like this, than anything else. So if you can get the audio done correctly, if the house of worship or if the theater has any sort of miking system in place so that the people on the stage can be heard well, if you can figure out how to get a tap of that into your feed, if the audio is good, they will forgive a little bit of instability or a little, the one simple wide thing. If they can't hear, then the communication of what's happening in the service falls apart.
Sorry, mouse got stuck in the wrong computer. Also, just think about if sometimes we get into this thing like, this is the mission, this is what I have to do. And we just start solving that problem, and we don't come back to ask whether we should do it or not. So I think Liberty was kind of touching on this, manage expectations. The chances of someone watching something that is done in a theater without the proper cameraing for more than about 3 or 4 minutes is very low. Like as someone who's done a lot of these shows, theaters have low average view time in general. So when you have a theater thing and you put it on a live stream, not many people are watching for very long. And then if you have it as a low quality, people watch it even less. And so you just want to really look at when you have limited access and limited materials, and you don't have good mics theoretically, and you don't have the cameras that are really going to capture this, are people really going to watch it? And so when you think about that, the effort, it might be worth it to learn and to do those things. But you may find that you're not serving that many people very well, and they might have been better off. Literally, they just may not spend a lot of time doing it, watching it. So just think about that effort in those areas. Theaters are really hard to shoot when you have good cameras, and harder to shoot when you don't have the infrastructure. Next question.
This comes in from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. Any recommendations for a product that connects a 15.6-inch screen to the PK1 Extreme stand for the ATEM Mini Extreme?
Go, Jason.
Let me start with what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't use those little 3D printed cold shoe things. And then second, you probably shouldn't do this at all because of the leverage of, the potential of tipping that over. That said, if you really, really, really want to do it, any sort of ball and socket, maybe into a frame, should be able to do it nicely.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to a little bit of both I don't know. I don't have an answer exactly. But looking at this frame basically is a frame for the ATEM, either the ATEM Mini or the ATEM Extreme, and it has some cold shoe mounts that are there. I think that Jason's right that there's a high probability that would probably shear, and you definitely would want them to be metal at least, for that. But I think that you may want to think about a frame that is behind that you're going to use those cold shoes to attach it to, so you can secure it to them, but it's got its feet the feet of that frame that holds the monitor are on the same plane as the feet of the switcher. So I would put something down that would go down there. To be honest with you, if I was going to do this, I'd machine it. I wouldn't probably print it. You might be able to print it out, but I think that Jason's correct that a 15-inch monitor is going to have a lot of leverage. And so as you start to move it, it's going to have, it's going to potentially be difficult, to keep there. But I think that if you let it put its feet on the ground and then attach it to the frame, I think you'd probably be better off. Next question.
Comes in from Douglas Carmichael. What other hardware-based, preferably Thunderbolt, Dante audio interfaces would the panel recommend other than the RME DigiFace Dante?
Go, Jason.
All right. You've asked this many times, Douglas, and I'll try to answer it as succinctly as possible. Absolutely any interface. I challenge you, as long as it's not the native Mac Ethernet.
But from a computer to Dante, all the channels. Like what would you do there?
OWC.
No. But you still need to do it. He's trying to get directly to Dante, not just having he's looking for an interface that's going to get to, I think he's not talking about using like the virtual card. So he's looking for, how do I have an interface that comes out of a, I'm assuming that's what he's trying to do, is try to get the audio interface.
Right, he's trying to replace his waves grid, right?
Right. So the thing is that, I think that what you're going to want to do is have Dante somewhere on the network, and then you're going to want to have, somewhere on a hardware network, and then you're going to want to have the virtual sound card still in there. I think the virtual sound card is how you're going to get audio out of that computer if you're not going to use an external thing. Now there is, we'll keep thinking on that. I don't have a direct answer for that. Next question.
Whoops, you're muted, Keely.
This comes from Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas. Anker just came out with a colorful lapel wireless mic for $200 US. Is this a lav mic breakthrough? And there's a link.
Go, Bill.
It's an interesting product. It was not on my radar. I think it's brand new. Let me switch to a little bit of their website, and I'll show you what this little thing is. It's the button on this woman's kind of collar here. It is a magnetic or pinnable little microphone that does two things. It's not just a wireless transmitter. It's also a local onboard recorder. And it's got a couple of interesting things. Again, nobody I know, it's brand new, has practical in the field experience with it, but it says that it does something a little bit like dual channel. It has a recorder on board that does multiple hours of recording. So it's a product that really fits in a category I've been thinking about a lot. I don't know whether the fidelity of this is fabulous or just good, but it looks like they're really going into this space of a little clip-on recorder and broadcaster that you can use wirelessly with a receiver someplace else. It has a little two-channel receiver and two of the buttons in that little kit you just saw, and it looks like something worth exploring. Again, we don't know how it's going to work in the real world, but it's a pretty interesting concept for a audio system, inexpensive.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I certainly wouldn't consider it a breakthrough, because basically what it looks like is the DJI mic with the two transmitters that record inside, with a bigger round case that looks more fashionable, but it advertises their name on the front of it. So now you're wearing a little button that advertises their name on your lapel with a furry hat on it if you're outside. So it just draws more attention to itself. It makes it a little harder to hide. I don't think it's a breakthrough. I think it's a marketing tool.
Yeah, I think that the problem is, I guess, I think the woman with it looking kind of like something on her jacket was the most natural looking thing I saw. The rest of them just, I'm not sure if I really like these labs that are kind of like, it's sticking out, anyway, so I don't know that I really like the visible ones. I've used them that way. I've used the Rode Go that way, and I found it was fine, but it was not I just didn't like the way it looked. So I think that's going to be a thing. If you wear something that matches the color, I think it'll probably be less noticeable. The sound quality was good. I mean, not great, but definitely good. But I do think that it's not. I don't think there's anything about it that's particularly special other than they built another shape, of a microphone. So I kind of agree with Courtney on that. Also, just a quick reminder that you can ask questions all the way through the show, so including right now. So you can ask questions and vote on those questions. Make sure to both ask the questions and vote on the questions. Let us know which ones you want us to answer, as well as throwing the questions that you may have into the hopper inside of Makana. All right, next question.
From Douglas Carmichael. For those with larger hands that have moved from a 15-inch MacBook Pro to a smaller 13 to 14-inch MacBook Pro, has it been an uncomfortable adjustment?
Yeah, 100%. I bought a 14-inch so that I could put it in little bags and stuff like that, and I thought that it would be used. I almost never use it. In fact, it's gotten me to almost not use laptops anymore. I hate it. I just don't want to spend. But the only reason I still have a 14-inch is because I don't want to spend money on another laptop, because I've gotten used to just carrying my studio around. so I just kind of moved away from laptops. But what killed my interest in laptops was my 14-inch MacBook Pro. It's just a horrible piece of junk. Next question.
Back to Paul Terry Wallace from Austin, Texas. Microsoft unveiled a new Bing-powered OpenAI ChatGPT, and Google announced a chatbot named Bard. You already know the AI wars are heating up. What horses are you betting on?
Go ahead, John.
So 2 weeks ago, Microsoft presented first, and they showed the integration of ChatGPT, successor to 3.5. They didn't call it 4.0, but it's a new model. And they talked about integrating it into all of the apps. And then the next day after, Google showed their product. They did a horrible presentation, and their stock went down $100 billion because of the possibility of Microsoft getting back into the search wars with Bing. I think long term, Google's gonna win out. They have the best AI company on the planet's DeepMind.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, Google probably has more money. Microsoft does own a large percentage of ChatGPT, that OpenAI. So they're better licensed to move that already existing technology in. Google has been working on their own AI engine for many years now and hasn't exposed it to the public, because the problem is when you keep it up to date. In other words, you scrape every day and you add that into the database, it can be gamed much more easily, because you can't go through and filter out all that stuff to keep it timely. So I think they're going to keep running into this problem that Microsoft ran into when they first issued their chatbot Tay, where it was quickly gamed and turned racist or misogynist, or you can do bad things to a AI model by seeding it with a lot of bad stuff. So I think they're both going to have a problem with this, but if it's managed correctly, I think Microsoft has a little bit more of a head start, because it has the most popular platform in the world, Microsoft Office, to integrate the AI into. So
I think it'll be really interesting to see. I do think that Microsoft's footprint inside of ChatGPT gives it a lot of it, gives it some leverage there. I will agree with John that Google's probably a little ahead as far as the technology internally, with what they have there. I also would not count out. I know I will sound crazy, but there are rumored to be an insane number of engineers working on machine learning and AI in Apple. So I wouldn't count them out. I know that Siri is not. We oftentimes kind of shake our head at Siri. There's rumors that there's another version of Siri inside of Apple that is a lot smarter than the current one that we're using. And Apple has in the past been pretty good at being a dark horse in the back, just kind of drafting on everybody, watching everything, and then leveraging the market. And so we should kind of keep watching them as well. Next question.
This comes from Greg Greckmeyer from Topping, Virginia. Has anyone found a fast way to get 4K video off an iPhone?
Go ahead, Jason.
If you just shot it, no. I just straight up no.
Yeah, I think the fastest way to do it is Lightning, out of your phone. I think this is why. I don't care about the European Union, but I really want the iPhone to have a USB-C just so I can pull the files off faster. I think that we're probably 1 or 2 updates away from the iPhone because of the European Union. But the bottom line is that Lightning has finally gotten to as long a tooth as we want it to be. And so I think that but there's no faster way than a lightning. So what you can do is either image capture or open it up in Photos, and just plug it in, and then you can do the direct import from the phone to Photos. And that's going to be the fastest way to get something off the photo. It's going to come in as fast as it's going to work with a wired connection to Photos on a manual import. Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael. In many contexts, like large broadcast music events and sports, I've heard of edits being required during the event itself. I've developed a basic level of comfort with Resolve. What is the secret to editing quickly?
EBS. So the EBS is how things are edited quickly. We just used something similar last night for a show, and so if you have like a fast turn, you're just using an EBS. We actually use Ross's version of that. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but Ross makes a version. Evertz makes Dreamcatcher. EBS is EBS. And so but you can. These are disk systems that basically record all the time, and then you can start setting in and out points as fast as you want. To make those things there. So what it's doing is it's not having to it's not having to re-render anything. What you're doing is setting up a database of in and out points. So you're just going, I want to go from here to here and here to here and here to here and here to here. And so you build those in and out points. And so it's able to just access that playback randomly. So it can keep on recording. It just keeps recording as a show, and it can have all the cameras or all the other bits and pieces, but then it's going to allow you to set up, I want to jump from here to here to here to here to here. And there's a handful of them. They're all really expensive. The ones that are a little less expensive are 3Play by NewTek, has a less expensive version of that, which is not the same feature set, but it can do a lot of edits. And then there's also MReplay from Softron, which will do it mostly on a Mac with those inputs. I haven't used MReplay as much, but it's something we're looking at experimenting with a little bit more. Next question. Oh, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't keep up with this technology because I don't really need to do it. But I know that for many years, 20 some odd years, there have been growing QuickTime files that you can use. And there's different companies that will create a growing QuickTime file. And the difference with that is you can literally just pull it off the drive while it is continuing to grow and actually put it into your editor. So unlike the EBS where you have a piece of hardware where you're telling it which parts you want it to play, you can absolutely be modifying it. You can be putting keys on it, overlays, putting in dissolves where there used to be a cut as long as you have handles, doing pull-ups, which is what you would be doing more likely with an EBS, but a growing QuickTime file. And I'm sure there's ins and outs and gotchas to it. Alex, I'm sure you've dealt with them, but that's probably worth looking at. Like I said, I haven't followed the growing QuickTime file thing for a long time.
Yeah, Telestream made the first one, the pipeline. They had a pipeline piece of hardware that did it, that we used it for events, and that was, 15 years ago. It never worked perfectly, but when it worked, it was great. And it got better over time, but the hardware was a little buggy. The Softron also makes one, I think it's MRecord or whatever, that will do the growing QuickTime files, and we use those inside of Final Cut to do edits during a show. The main thing is that it is true that that you can do that, and we've done it a lot of times we do it as a backup. So we're pulling this all into Final Cut with a growing file. Someone makes a mistake and you cut it out, like while the show's going on. You can literally be a couple minutes behind, just kind of taking notes and making little edits and doing all the things you want to do. When you're done, though, there's still a render. So that's the thing that you have to, when you're talking about fast return, you can't do that really during a show for playback. If you're trying to deliver a VOD that is better than the live, a half an hour after the live went out, so what we would call a fast turn, but not a instant, replay or instant turn or during the show turn, I think it works pretty well. Now you can, if you get a little time, 15, 20 minutes, you're seeing that a lot. A lot of times you'll see them analyze shots on the second, after the halftime, from the first half. And the reason that they're doing that is so they can do composites and everything else and then render those out. So you can do those things during the show if you've got a little time. But those software-based ones with growing files are definitely effective. And what they do is they just start throwing segments in. They write it all out. They write out a 2-hour. You define it. You say this is a 2-hour. And it looks to Final Cut like a 2-hour block, but it just keeps on updating the file with new segments. And so that's how it's kind of wrapping that out. But it is it's not a super stable solution, and so it's not something I want to hang my hat on for a show. Like we've never had it be perfect. We have had it be perfect, but we haven't had it be perfect every single time. And so when it's 90, for me, if it's 98% effective, it's not effective at all because I can't. If that in that 2% is like 2 weeks of meetings. Go ahead, Jason.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I threw this so fast. See, Keeley talks about the fact that I throw the ball really fast. Not only did I throw the ball so fast, I didn't even give Keeley the time to ask the question. I just threw it to Jason on the next one. Go ahead, Keeley.
Man,
so fast. That's like the quarterback just getting up and just throwing the ball down the field like no one is
super quick route.
Go ahead, Keeley. Next question.
Swidner from Lafayette, Indiana is asking, what is your favorite portable keyboard? I keep looking at foldable ones, but I've had bad luck with them.
And go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so just getting that red mark off my face from the dodgeball. My very favorite keyboard forever has always been the Lenovo ThinkPad. The T400 was just phenomenal. They released, I want to say 2010, 2011, a much beefier version of that same keyboard in Bluetooth. In 2020, they did a still weaker version that was more rounded, and I didn't like that one as much. But yeah, if you can find it on eBay, it's awesome.
Good, Courtney.
Depends on what you're going to be doing with this keyboard. If you're looking for something to touch type on, go with a Logitech portable keyboard that's about the same size as the Apple keyboards. A lot of times I'll travel with a portable keyboard to use with these stick PCs, and so I'll use something like this Azio because it has a built-in, this is the size of the computer that I'm communicating with. It has a little dongle so it can plug into a USB, and then some of them, they make them for Bluetooth as well. And it has in the corner here, it has a little optical pickup, and you use your thumb on that as a mouse. And it has 2 mouse buttons on the left, so you can use it as a mouse. You can type it. You can thumb type on it to type stuff in if you're pretty good at thumb typing. But of course, it's too small to touch type on, so that's a gotcha.
And the one that I haven't gotten yet, but I'm seriously considering is the Nuphy, Nuphy, the Nuphy Air. I'm looking at an Air 75. They come with little cases on the top, and I have to admit, it was just I had an EVS we were talking about EVS before. I had an EVS operator that's what they use for their little. They had a little one that they were taking notes on. I was like, "What is that keyboard? It looks so cool!" And so the Nuphy, and she loved it. So she was just like, "This is the most amazing keyboard I've ever had." So anyway, the Nuphy is the one that I'm circling. I can't recommend it yet, but it looks really nice. It looks pretty quiet. There's a couple different versions of it. It's got a lot of control over what kind of keys you can get for it and all those little things. Next question.
Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas. Alphabet stock is up just 1.9% so far this year compared to the Nasdaq's 10% rise, while failing Meta Platforms has jumped 41% year to date. How do you account for this, and what's the fix?
Go, Bill.
Well, the stock market is basically a form of gambling, and I think people think that there's some long-term process, and they're maybe hoping for value with something depressed and want to bet on it. I mean, you can never tell how the people who invest at the big level in the stock market think about things, because I think half of it is just how they feel when they wake up in the morning, and whether or not they feel that, I think this is coming and I don't think anybody else sees it, so I'll go in long on it.
Go, Jason.
Now, it's not gambling. It's the world's greatest Ponzi scheme, okay? You got to get that part right. Really, really important. Trying to justify the market is, good luck.
So, go ahead, Chris.
The reason you can't apply math to the stock market is that market analysts talk a lot about what is called market sentiment. Like, how do people feel? Like, it makes a difference. If your CEO is crazy or a sociopath, people will feel less comfortable investing in that company. All you're doing is deciding, I like what this company's doing and I want to be a part of it. You get to actually own a little bit of it. Is it a gamble? It's absolutely a gamble. Is it math? No. If it was math, we would all be billionaires. But it's largely reliant on market sentiment. That's the word you were looking for, Bill.
Yeah. And so, I think that the issue is that I think a lot of folks still feel like the lock-in for Facebook is much higher than the lock-in for Google. So I think that is the lock-in is what I think a lot of investors pay attention to in a long-term, environment, is that people, even though I don't use Facebook much anymore, I still am there and I still check in. Like they haven't, I haven't just gone somewhere else. I think that, I'm pretty locked into Google with all the docs and everything else, but I could probably move that pretty quickly. The Facebook, all the connections that you have with everyone else would be harder. Next question.
This comes from Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana. For very young kids, what would you suggest for trust, but verify for location tracking? AirTags seem like a good idea at first glance.
My whole family has some version of AirTags on them, whether that's in their bag or in their, on their keychain, on my keychain and everything else. And we just do it so we can find each other. Like we're trying to go somewhere. Like, where is that? Where are they? If we're at a park or if we're at a some kind of amusement thing or whatever it is, it's so much easier to organize with that process. So I think the AirTags work great. I don't know if I would depend on them that much, but throwing them into a bag is probably not a bad idea. I don't know, I probably have on my account now, I probably have 30 or 40 AirTags that I put on things. Like I've just slowly, and I didn't buy them all at one time. It's like, oh, I need another 5 of these, and I'll put this on this, and I'll put these on there. I'll put them in the car. I'll put them like I had a FedEx, we put them in all of our cases that we ship. And I could not only tell you when FedEx didn't deliver our case on Friday, I could tell you not only where it was, but what part of the building it was. Like it's in the back corner, and then I saw they moved it to the front corner. Then I saw they moved it to another place, and we were going to send someone to LAX to pick it up, but we didn't because we had to call FedEx because we saw that they had moved it to another location. Our ability to like manage our resources was dramatically changed by just having those AirTags in our bags. I don't think I would travel without an AirTag in every bag I own now. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, you're going to always see these stories of abuse of this technology, but the technology itself is so powerful and it can be used for so much just relief and goodness. Alex is articulating some of them. Where is my thing? Where is my dog? Where is, and as long as there's consent and everybody's going, if my wife wants to find me, I'm happy for her to always keep track of me.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Well, teenagers are pretty smart, and they're going to learn pretty quickly to leave their AirTags at Jennifer's house, and then they go out somewhere, and you think, oh, they're over at Jennifer's house.
We're not trying to keep track of them. My kids are like, we're just trying to know when we're trying to meet somewhere, we're trying to find it. And they know that they're there. They're in their bag. They're the ones that put them there. So if they want to take them off, they can. So
right. But the solution would be to superglue them to the small of their back. And then Child Protective Services.
You got to get it right so that they can't reach the back of the head.
I don't know why you're doing superglue when you can just, surgically implant them. Yeah, exactly.
That's when Child Protective Services comes and takes your children away.
Exactly. Next question.
From Alexander Knight in Vancouver, BC, for Mr. Lindsay, are you using SDI ATEM in your main setup now? How reliable has the USB webcam output been? I'm curious if Blackmagic has made any other undocumented internal changes to chipsets.
Embarrassingly, I haven't had time. I've just had so many productions rolling through that I haven't had time to flip my system yet. So it still sits here. There's pieces over here and pieces over here, and I have a lot of, when I have a lot of deadlines, I try not to open up new projects. So I go, because I know that if I do, I will be working on all the projects at the same time. So I have left that one because it'll take a day to tear it apart and put it back together. And I'm trying not to allow myself to do it. It's sitting like it's right here, and the other parts are right over there. And I keep on looking at them going, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm like, nah, if I open this up, this is my whole weekend of fiddling with it, because it won't be just swapping it. It'll be like, oh, and then I need this, and I need this, and I need this. And I do need to order a couple more HDMI to SDIs and SDIs to HDMIs to kind of get that all worked out. Go ahead, Chris.
This is just between Alex and I. The rest of you can tune out. So, Alex, you mentioned your desk again the other day.
Yeah.
And talking about your system. Do you want a hard surface on your desk or a soft surface on your desk?
Hard surface.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just working on some ideas.
Okay, cool. Next question.
We're going to Roscoe Jones from Madison, Indiana. How do you use old computers with outdated operating systems in your workflows? Or do you get rid of them?
Go ahead, Courtney.
I don't get rid of them. I have closets full of them. because in my job, I occasionally am called upon to provide props for a film or something and you have to have age-appropriate computers appear, and so you have to keep them running. Steve Gibson still runs Windows XP on a lot of his computers, I think. And if you're a software author, if you write software or write code, you can keep them running because your code will always be kept up to date. You may run into problems with older operating systems. I had a friend who has a copy of Office 2003 and bought a brand new laptop, HP laptop, and wanted to get it to run there. It doesn't work very well we found that Microsoft Cloud hoses it. So if you remove Microsoft Cloud, you can still run Microsoft Office 2003 on a Windows 11 machine if you just remove the Microsoft Cloud hooks. Then it works fine. So you can do it, and a lot of people like to do it because they like the interface of their older software. So they want to keep older software running on newer machines, or they just stay with the old machine if they can't get the old software to work on the new machines.
Good, Jason.
Computers work relatively well in a vacuum, meaning not connected to the internet. It's important that you power them up every couple of years because the hard drives will actually demagnetize. That said, you can fit a shocking number of computers in a single closet. So get a closet, dedicate it, and you're good to go.
Good, Jeffrey.
The other problem with storing computers like that is spiders get into certain areas. You got to go in and clean them out because you could turn on a computer and all of a sudden the power supply just go boop like that. I've had
vacuum bags.
Yeah, I've had several different computers. I do have one Windows XP machine. I do have one Windows Vista machine sitting in the other room. And if you really need to go back in operating systems, virtual machines work really well in that aspect.
Of all the things that I thought we would mention about what could go possibly wrong, I just did. Spiders was not one of the list. Well, it wasn't on my list, my internal list. It's good. It's good. All right, next question.
This is Kenny Hampton from Greenville, Illinois. Has anyone worked with the open source software Mumble as a free to inexpensive comm solution for houses of worship and schools? It uses server software, free iOS and Android apps for download. Comments appreciated, and the links are in chat.
I'm really interested in taking a look at it. Like I'm curious what Mumble does. I've heard about it and I've heard people use it, and I kind of opened it up. I was like, oh, I had to get around to that. I ought to take a look at it, and I haven't had time to really open it up and take a closer look. So we'll take a look at that. Maybe a lab is in. If someone can, if Kenny, if you want to propose a time, talk to the folks that do that, Josh and Roy, see if we can find out when we might be able to put that in. But I think it'd be kind of fun for us to take a look at that and see what we can do. Next question.
This comes from Bob Sturdivant from Nairobi, Kenya. What are YouTube Shorts? Are they only vertical format? And do we still use the rule of thirds?
Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, these days everyone's trying to copy TikTok. So YouTube Shorts, yes, they are vertical video. And the way I do them is you want to have the talent frame dead center. Otherwise, if they're slightly off, it's very easy to get them out of frame. So you really, really have to pay attention to that for vertical video.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
One other thing to remember is YouTube is 1 minute in shorts. If you go 1 minute point one, it becomes a regular YouTube video. You've got to be underneath that 1 minute. And I've been taking a lot of my old videos and just redoing them in shorts to shorten them down and make them pop again.
Yeah, I have to say that I really enjoy YouTube Shorts. I'm kind of going back and forth between YouTube Shorts and TikTok and trying to figure out where things matter. And as a viewer, what I like, the good thing about YouTube Shorts is that it's limited to a minute. I felt like TikTok, my viewing time on TikTok dropped a solid 80-90% when they went over a minute. Like I just realized, I was like, because I get to TikTok, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I look at the little thing that's going to slide. I'm like, this is going to be 3 minutes long. I am not going to sit here for 3 minutes watching this, and so it created so much stress. I like TikToks when they were 15 seconds of music, and then the rest of it, you were kind of on your own. And so the 1 minute is the outer limit for me. And so I just skip TikToks that are long. But I think that, so I like that. The thing that's missing, I oftentimes feel, is the memes. And I don't know if Jeffrey and Alex, if you find that, like, I don't really feel like there's a meme culture in shorts. There's a creation culture, but there's a different thing in I'm going to open this up here. Let's see if this works. So like this is a good example of I don't know if this is a good one. Hold on. But there's right now there's a meme, like, so for instance, that's coming out of an incredibly what is it, the unbearable likeness of greatness, or the unbearable
unbearable lightness of being.
No, that's an old one. This is a new one with Nick Cage. There's a shot where the camera goes to him and he looks really concerned, and then it looks over at Pedro Pascal, and he's like he's a crazy look on his face, and it's just everywhere. It's, when I walk into, there was one where it was like, when I walk into an office, the concerned one. Anyway, the point is, that thing has been used like 10,000 times. And it's just a fun rat hole to see how people there is something about the connection between people taking a similar video and showing how their experience applies to it that is really powerful on TikTok and lost in shorts. And I think it's something a couple of us have been talking about, is that shared experience, the fact that sharing the content is part of the TikTok culture. The funniest, the inception version of this was people started using the Verve Pipes Freshman, because they were using the Freshman filter. And so they were using the Freshman filter and, so they're using that music, and they're all showing themselves as teenagers because there's a teenage filter or whatever. Anyway, so after a little bit of time, Brian Vander Ark, who is the lead singer for the Verve Pipe, came on and did one of him going, like his, and he goes, the only thing I regret, the only thing I would love to do if I went back as a teenager is write 2 hit songs. so which I thought was great. So anyway, but it showed him, and he did it, and there was something so meta about him doing one to his song was already peaking, and him jumping into that I thought was pretty great. Anyway, go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, I can only speak to my experience having doubled down on this on shorts content. I haven't found it nearly as successful as TikTok. And just to give you an example, a lot of the videos that I've been putting up on YouTube Shorts for my client, they get a couple thousand views, and then those same videos on TikTok, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. So it's not the same culture on YouTube. It just isn't.
Yeah, go Jeffrey.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Mostly because they keep saying, if you want to do YouTube, you want to niche down, and if your shorts are not niche down as much as your long form content, then it doesn't work. Whereas TikTok is like, you could throw the paint at the wall and see what sticks type thing, and especially because they also have the duets, and they have the stitches and other stuff like that. So if you do the skating down the street, listening to Fleetwood Mac, drinking Capri Sun or whatever that drink was, then everybody can copy and paste that. But the one thing that I really hate, especially if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, is anything that's ripped straight from TikTok. You see the little TikTok thing bouncing around. I just stop watching those because I'll watch them on TikTok, but I won't watch them on YouTube or Facebook for that matter.
Yeah, I will. I agree with you there. But I'm generally that way with everything. I don't think you should repurpose content from one platform to another. I think that you should build content for that platform and then build content for another platform. But repurposing them is not something that I
repurpose it. I just make sure that, like for instance, on the top, I'll have hashtag TikTok Tech on my TikToks. But then when I go to Instagram, I'll go Instagram Tech. I'll use the same video, but I'll put in different graphics.
I guess when I do those, mostly for clients, I don't do a lot for myself. I format and plan the shoot for each piece of those things. I very rarely cut things out, or I shoot really high resolution, pan and scan differently. So you get a 16:9 on YouTube, you'll get a 9:16 on, and I'm panning and scanning, but reformatting that. It takes a lot more work, but I find that it's a lot more effective to make sure that people, as soon as people feel like I find that as soon as people feel like you're repurposing your Instagram into TikTok or vice versa, the connection isn't quite there. You're not native anymore. So anyway, a quick reminder: we're going to push a couple of the questions back. The general questions, you can always put those in. If we pushed your question back, we're trying to let people know, because we realize people sometimes don't know that when we push your question back, you can bring it in tomorrow morning. So definitely take advantage of that. So we pushed a couple questions back so we can move to the second hour. But you can bring those in tomorrow morning. A reminder also that we're starting to get up earlier, for us anyway, and really discussing some of these questions before the show. So if you're watching, you can come in about 6:15 Pacific Standard Time. We're kind of looking through some of the questions that might get earlier, because we didn't get through very many of them this morning. But it's kind of a much more informal roundtable discussion. So you can, but throw your questions in. Try to get them in before 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If we pushed them back, gives us a chance to look at them, and that's the best time. Before 6 a.m. Pacific Standard is the best time to. We reset at 4 p.m. But anytime after 6 or 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, start throwing those questions in. But try to get them in before 6, because it gives us time to look at them. All right, we are jumping to our second hour to talk about MidJourney. There was a lot of questions. I did a little video for MidJourney for Twit, and I think a lot of people asked about it. And I was like, well, we can just do a whole hour and talk about it. This isn't me doing a whole hour of MidJourney. This is really just, there's a bunch of folks here that are playing with it. So we want to have people, if you have things you want to talk about related to that. We don't really want to show a lot of slides, but if you have a couple things that you want to talk about, or a couple things you want to discuss, let us know. Just for the panel, go ahead and throw your hand up and we can discuss it. But what I thought I'd do is kind of try to give you a quick overview of what that looks like. And so I'm just going to try to get this set up correctly here. The first thing that you want to think about is how to get started. I think this is the thing that I think a lot of people have trouble with is how to get it off the ground at all. And so let me, they're kind of complex. One of the things that I don't like about Discord is there's no way to just kind of show one part of it. It's kind of all or nothing. And so what I want to do first is show you what MidJourney looks like as we go through this. And so let me, this is a little bit of a setup on my end. So anyway, let's jump into MidJourney itself. So I'm going to cut to this so you can see MidJourney here. And I'm going to look at the program here. So what you have here is, this is MidJourney, and you can get to MidJourney just simply going to midjourney.com. It'll send you right into the Discord, the MidJourney Discord, if you say you want to start up. So you're going to see this here. Now, there's a couple things to pay attention to when you look at this. So one of the things that you want to look at is newbies. Newbies is where you can put things in. So you'll see people putting search terms in here. And these are folks that have just gotten started, and they're kind of throwing in ideas. And you'll see a couple things that are happening here as they put them in. You'll see these quads. These quads are what you always get. So when you put a search term in, you have a quad here. And then, so you have a quad you'll get a quad. And then what you can do is you can upres them. These are upres one image or another. And then these are to build another quad of them. So if you get something like you see this frog here, you can say, oh, I would like to have 4 more versions of this top frog, or 4 more versions. So it's going to continue to iterate. And that's how you're kind of building your journey of how to create some of those things that are there. So you can see someone else requested those. And so the newbies, and this is what you're going to see over and over again. Someone asked for a high-res version of that. And so you have, and as we do this, by the way, throw those questions in. We'll answer your questions here. We'll jump to questions pretty quickly after we get going here. Now, I would not start here. What I would do is go down to, my recommendation is to go to the themes, and you'll see these abstracts, characters. So this is where folks that really know what they're doing are doing. There's a daily theme. You'll see really long ones like this. I don't know if all of that makes a difference, when you throw those things in, so sometimes I kind of feel like it's a little bit of superstition for those, but you'll see some that are fairly simple that are there, but it's really great when you're brainstorming to take a look at what people are putting in there and what kind of results they're getting. And then you can take pieces of those out, to find those. So, but you have a lot of different ones. Here's image prompts. So what people are doing there is saying, I want to grab an image from the internet or from Discord, somewhere else in Discord to make that actually happen. So And then here's some general ones. And so these are where people are playing in those areas. But I would look at these first and get a sense of what's happening and what people are doing before, because once you sign up, you get 25 of these to do before you have to start paying for it. So as a newbie, you want to come in here and kind of give it, you can give it a shot. Now, once you have gotten through this, and again, I would pay close attention to what other people are doing before you start using up your own capacity to do that. But once you've gotten through that, you're going to get your own setup. And so let me take a look at this here. I'm going to turn a couple other things on. And so what it'll look like is it'll look like a bot. It's just literally looking like it looks like one of your friends there, and this didn't work. Hold on. So anyway, so it'll look like one of your, like a friend that you can talk to here. So it's just MidJourney is just another person that you're talking to. This was from Twit. Twit had fetch happens, and so I put fetch in, and you get all kinds of crazy questions. This was, and this gives you a sense of how many that I might generate on one idea. So Twit. What we use these for was I use them a lot for thumbnails. Like, thumbnails, like if you look at the Twit and MacBreak thumbnails, a lot of them are me sending these to Leo. I was trying to get it to be, there's a meme going by about I eat art, something, I eat art, and my kids were playing with it. So I was trying to get it to do eating a painting, and all I got were paintings. So that shows you when you're playing with these ideas of what you're doing, you kind of come up with the crazy ideas here. So now, what you do is I pay for it. I have a pro version. You can get a basic version. It's like $15 a month. I pay a little bit more than that, so I can kind of not have to think about it. And what I do is you just hit imagine, and and then it'll pop up a prompt. Now, what's going to happen here as you get started is that prompt is I generally start with the thing that's the most important, and then go to other ancillary things that are there. You can see that I created some great images of woodchucks chucking wood. That's usually what I put in as a test case that's there. But you can say, I need someone to call something out. Does someone have anything they want to see? Chris Fenwick, usually. I know that Chris will come up with something crazy. No, I just threw the ball right at him. He wasn't even turned around. He's just like... And yes.
John Preto on a man on a very tiny bicycle.
Chris Fenwick in a wrestling outfit.
A man on a very tiny bicycle, and then you can do something like, and I'd like it to be with glam lighting, because that's always fun. So glam lighting, and that does make a difference. And then
while that rolls, John Cleese as a luchadora.
In the style of Frank Oz.
See, here we go. Photoreal, in the style,
John Cleese as a luchadora.
I can't pronounce it. You're going to have to, I can't even type that. So anyway, and then I'll go, AR 16 by 9. So that's that's aspect ratio 16 by 9. And then I'll hit go. And what you'll see is it start to work. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that it is going much, it will be, the quads come up much faster than the high res ones. And so I'm assuming that there's a different processor there that makes all of that work. But those are the things that are there. And now you'll see this kind of pop up, and it starts to kind of figure this out. It's one of those things that I go, every time I try to present this, I always can't think of what to type in. And then when I do it all day, I have this thing open all day, and I'm just kind of making images while I'm thinking.
It doesn't look tiny.
I don't know. Is a man on a very tiny?
Does it not know what tiny is? Small?
Evidently not. It's got little wheels over here. So again, what you do is you start to, one of the things that we got into was imagine C3PO.
How do you spell C3PO?
C3PO? 0?
Kidding.
It won't care. C3PO as a steampunk robot in the style of Rembrandt. Let's see. Photoreal. And we'll go back to AR 16 by 9. I tend to do I keep on meaning to do a thing. Anyway, so those are some of the, you can kind of do these kind of things, and you'll see it start to work here in a second. Yeah, I don't know what it was thinking here. It's
seems to have misinterpreted glam lighting as having a light in the frame.
Well, yeah, sometimes it doesn't usually do that. And then it'll push it out to a web browser.
They are backlit really nicely.
Yeah, they all look very glam, but they had to put the light into the frame. Here is C3PO being built up to speed here and what's funny is Rembrandt will confuse it. So it'll kind of do Rembrandt, but it'll also give you something that's very 16th century as well. So it's like, it does a couple, it'll interpret those because it's just grabbing onto that information as it goes through here. And I'm going to hand this off to some other folks to talk about a little bit, but there's C3PO in the style of Rembrandt as a steampunk robot. And again, the thing about this is that you start with this, but then what you say is you go, oh, well, I would like to see more of number 3. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to see more of number 3, and I want to make a big one of that. And I might want a big one of number 1 here. And so it'll start. So what you're now doing is starting to spawn. You're spawning new ideas, from the one that you had there. So anyway, this is basically how it runs, and hopefully that's generated some questions. And we've got Jeffrey. You've got a couple things to share there. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Oh yeah. So I basically do a lot of commands. It's all keyword based. So that's the important thing, especially if you put an image in. It's going to take the image and it's going to break it up into a ton of keywords that you don't see, of course, and then it's going to recreate the picture. And the reason why it does that is it doesn't want to do deep fakes. It doesn't want that. MidJourney does not want to get in trouble with copyrights and everything. That they're already getting in trouble with copyrights. There was apparently one image that showed a blurred Getty Images watermark.
Sure.
Even though there was a dispute on if it was or not, and of course there was a lawsuit on that. So I'm going to go through a quick list. I just did a whole bunch of MidJourneys here. I'm going to show you with some commands how you can make it work as best as possible. I'm going to start with this one. This is basic. A crowd of 1,000 people waiting for Office Hours Global to start. We get a fourplex of that. A whole bunch of people standing in a hallway. Easy, simple as that. I wanted to be more diverse. You noticed a lot of white males in there, so I did a diverse crowd of 1,000 people waiting for 1,000 office hours to start, and it did a little bit better. I wanted to do a little bit more. A diverse crowd of 1,000 aliens waiting for Office Hours Global to start.
As you can see, some that look like humans in there. They're human aliens.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty good list here. Yeah, definitely. Now, my brother, he loves to do this type of stuff. A diverse crowd of 1,000 people waiting for Office Hours Global to start in the style of Jack Kirby. So a lot of cool artistic fails, as we saw with C3PO. Next one. This is version 3. There's multiple. There's version 1, version 2, version 3, and version 4. There are certain things you can do in version 3 that you cannot do in version 4. And I'll talk about that in a quick second here. But this is what happened when you do Office Hours to start -- version 3. Next command. This is the seed command. This is actually pretty cool. If you set a number, you have like between 0 and 4 million or something like that. If you set a seed number behind your command, then you can reuse that command. So a couple of weeks later, you want to come back to this one. All you have to do is put the -- seed 1, 2, 3, 4, and it brings this photo right back in there, so you can add to it with that. Next one is the no command. This is a touch and go one, because I've been told that if you do no text, text won't show up, but it does show up. So this one, no faces, that worked, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
And a lot of times faceless oftentimes is better than no faces. Like no doesn't, because it's additive. It's pulling all this stuff in and adding things to it. So taking things out is very hard.
Yeah. All right. So a couple more here. This is basically, it'll stop. Even though it goes through the 100%, you'll see it go through the 100%. It says, you say stop at 50%. This is the images that are stopped right at 50%. Q2. I forgot what Q2 was, but that's another command that you can set up for this. of course, we did the variations. I did the 1080 by 1920 of vertical video, vertical photos of this. And then this is another very powerful one. A diverse crowd of 1,000 people, : 1, and dogs, : 3, waiting for Office Hours Global to start. What that does is it gives priority to the dogs over the people in your image. So it'll give you more of what you want and not focus on the people. It'll focus on the dogs in this case. And those are the main ones. There's a lot more commands, and it's all touch and go. Just keep in mind, some of those commands will work in version 3, so you have to go back to version 3 to get what you want.
Which I admit I never do, because version 4 looks so much better that I generally won't go back. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, if you have artist friends and they've been hearing about AI generated art and you want to amaze them or scare them, is send them to the MidJorney Community Showcase. And this is a collection of really high def, really good looking photos that are recent, generated in the last couple of days. And as you hover your mouse over it, it shows you what the prompt was, which created those. So you can get an idea of what they're using to create these photos and these pictures. I shouldn't call them photos. But you'll find a lot of amazing artwork there. So you'll see what it's capable of after you refine it and update it. And it scares all of your artistic friends.
Well, and I have to say that it is so, some of the stuff is so outrageous and so cool that, like, we used to use a lot of stock art for thumbnails. Not anymore. Like, I don't even think about it. Like, I don't think about using those types of things anymore. Everything I'm doing is in MidJorney to do things that I just want kind of a zany photo that's going to catch your eye. It's always going to be that at this point. Go ahead, Rick.
I kind of wanted to elaborate on what Jeffrey was talking about with the weights. You can actually add weights to brackets too. So you can put a whole phrase inside the brackets and then weight that whole phrase. So not just individual words, but you can actually bracket a whole group of words.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that, what they're now calling, I tend to call them diffusionists, but other people are calling them, prompt engineers. And I think that there's, figuring these things out and getting these little tidbits, and they have tips and tricks inside of MidJorney. And then I just sit there and watch a lot of people, watch what they're putting in, watch how it's going, how it's working there, and going, oh, I think I'll apply that. And I will say that it's my favorite toy to play with. And because it's in Discord, it works on my phone. And so, if I'm sitting around waiting for something, like I'll be waiting for a movie and I'll just sit there and I'm just going to sit there in MidJorney for the next, 20 minutes, making some crazy images for no apparent reason. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I remembered the Q is actually quality. So if you wanted to do a lower end quality inside there, then that's the Q2 is what I set.
Yeah, and so it's pretty astounding, what you can do with these things. And I'm using them now. I'm doing some keynote decks, and one of the things that I'll try to pull up some examples, but one of the things that I found very, very useful is over a flat white background. So I have objects. I want a 50s, like I'll show one. There's like a 50s radio over a flat white background, because I was trying to have radio. It's radio and TV, and I want it to be kind of cute and everything else. Oh, and the other thing is, in the style of, can go a long way. So one of the things I did is I started doing in the style of Pixar over a flat white background. And what I get are these little Pixar kind of like objects, and they all kind of belong together. Like they all kind of look like if you use the same style, they all kind of belong together. And they don't look like they came from, you didn't cut them out of any Pixar film. They just feel like that kind of roundy kind of look to it. And it's just and someone's going to see a presentation that they've never seen those images before. And I would have to go out and find them on white, and then I have drop shadows, and because it generates the drop shadow as well. So go ahead, Rick.
Something that I found very useful, and I've been trying to find ways to monetize some of this art, and I've been making T-shirts and things like that. And a really interesting way to isolate some of this art is to add something like sticker or die cut sticker.
Yeah.
And it'll actually add like a white outline around it, which then you could extract and use it to like put on other things pretty easily, in comparison to cut something out of a complex background.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that we're talking about MidJourney. Crayon.ai still does better logos than like its ability to create like a logo-y kind of look. A lot of times I find easier to do it there. I don't know if it's still out there, but I was using it and I can't quite get to the same place I was there that I got there. But my kids have been talking about that. We've been thinking about getting a screen press. Do you have a screen press, Rick, or do you send them out?
I've been doing print on demand, so I don't have to have inventory. I can just set up the artwork and variety of styles, colors, shapes, all that, and it's all behind the scenes. I don't touch anything.
We were talking about it with the and what do you make? You just set your price and then you make a certain margin on them, or is that how that print on demand works?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, you get a price from the person who's actually doing the production, and then you can adjust your
Yep. Because we were talking about my kids just wearing them to school, just wearing the shirts to school, and then with cool logos on them that mean nothing, but they're can you copyright it? No, but who cares? Like you're selling shirts, like someone else has got to sell the shirt for $3 each, So it's a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions.
All right, our first question comes from Bobby Rafferty from Central Florida. Would this be a more useful tool if for artists to seed the tool with a sketch rather than using a text prompt to get more production-ready results?
Go ahead, Rick.
So this is so you can use images to kind of give a base for some of the art. So you can upload an image to Discord, grab that link, and then after you type your imagine, you put that link in, and then add a little description to then modify that art. So you have something to start with, and then you give it a little bit of a text direction to drive the style in the direction you'd like to go.
Yeah, exactly. It can definitely do some of those, and you can also take whole images into it. So one of the things that you can do, for instance, is you can, and I'm going to pop this up here. This is me throwing up an image of myself, just dragging it into the thing, and then saying I want it as a I think I said I wanted it as a Jedi Knight in the style of manga, and so I just gave it that, and that's pretty much the whole prompt. But it took a picture of me, and so all I did was drag that image into the conversation I was having with MidJourney, right-clicking on that and saying copy link, putting the link in. So imagine and put the link in as a Jedi Knight manga, in the style of manga, and then you get that. So it oops, and I can't figure out. Anyway, now I'm in a lost state here, so I'm trying to do too many things at one time. Anyway, so so you can do a lot of things that are pretty fun, and so you can take the images of your friends. You don't have to just do things that are in the database. You can start with that image and then put it out. Is it going to look exactly like it? No. Sometimes in that case, is it going to look better than you? And the answer is yes. So anyway, next question. I can't hear you, Keely.
This comes from Clive Kitchener in Soak, BC. Has anyone figured out how to make MidJourney spell correctly, and why is spelling such an issue?
Go ahead, John.
From what we're told is they purposely scramble the letters because they don't want to violate any copyright trademark issues.
Ah, okay. Jeffrey?
Yeah, and it's very frustrating because if you're looking for something, if you're looking to make something and all of a sudden if it's got it especially baked into the image, the just this weird array of whatever characters that they think are text, it kind of it doesn't work with a lot of the stuff that I do. So it'd be nice if they just wouldn't put text in at all.
I find that it's really beefing up my Photoshop skills to have to fix. I'm now ending up as a MidJourney touch-up artist.
Same.
Like you're opening up, but like all these things I haven't done in Photoshop for a long time. I'm like, oh, I got to paint this out, but I got to do it seamlessly, and I got to get rid of. So I'm using all these tools because it gets so close. Like it just does these incredible images, and then you're like, but it's got a wire sticking out of his head. It's a perfect image, and then there's like a little wire. Like I don't know why you thought that was going to be okay. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely Photoshop skills definitely come in handy for that. I have a lot of like the content aware fills and things like that to get rid of it. But I've also been using other AIs too, like stable diffusions in painting and out painting to remove elements or add elements or combine elements.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I think that's going to come to MidJourney at some point where you can select something and just have it sort some of that stuff out. Like go fix this, just get rid of this or something, because it seems like it should be able to generate those. The other thing to remember is that we're just doing 2D images right now. There are already a lot of talk about things that are happening with scenario.gg is one that is moving really quickly, where they're building tons and tons of characters. A lot of those things are going to happen very, very fast. Next question.
Clive Kitchener from Soak BC again. How long do you think it'll be before one of the big players scoops up MidJourney? When that happens, will it be good or bad for users? Open your crystal ball.
Go ahead, John.
So the crystal ball is Adobe's been working on AI stuff for a decade. They're going to integrate generative AI. At Max last year, they talked about 10 different projects of adding generative AI into Photoshop. All the components will come into layers. If you want to change a text layer, you just go in and change the text layer. It's going to be much easier for Adobe to add generative AI into Photoshop than it's going to be for MidJourney to add editing into their application. So Adobe's going to win out in the end.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and with a lot of different open source ways, like Preto's making his server, AI server, that I wouldn't be surprised if they just basically bypass and they say we're just going to outbest MidJourney with our own version. So I have no doubt that there's somebody that has a server out there right now that is making deep fakes. That's their own server and their own code. Nobody gets to touch it but them.
Yeah, I'm curious as to whether people will catch up. So one of the things that is happening is that MidJourney's got so many people. I think that I don't know what the number is right now. Someone can look at today's numbers on MidJourney's server, but I think it's probably over 10 million now. The last time I looked a couple of weeks ago, at the rate it's going, the last time I looked a couple of weeks ago, it was 8.5 million people. And when you have that many people iterating, the big problem is that you can try to do something in a lab, but without the human interaction of people actually using the product, you're not getting that really valuable data that is like how they're using it and what they're generating and so on and so forth. And so I think that I think that the MidJourney is getting some serious, pieces that they are missing some things, that integration, so on and so forth. But I also think that, Photoshop could do it, but also another one, some of these other ones like Affinity Photo or Pixelmator or some of the other ones might be easier for them to integrate it because they may not be as worried about the legal ramifications as Adobe might be. Go ahead, Chris.
I don't think Tom ever thought anybody would catch up in MySpace, but that kind of went away. I think the catch-up game is relevant, but it's not insurmountable. I think for a couple of years I've been saying, Google's on its way out, and everybody always laughs at me. But then you have ChatGPT as a way of searching and finding stuff. I think that as you start playing with this, it is interesting. I wanted to mention. One of my clients had me do a video about how to use the search functions and keywords on their own personal image library. And one of the women I was dealing with had worked for Getty. And I learned some stuff about Getty and keywording and stock photography that was very interesting. And there are sort of well-proven keywords in the stock library world that I was not aware of. And I'll share it in Mukana, but it might be an interesting thing to start applying some of these things. There was one, she had a word that she used for free, I would call it negative space, but she had a word, I can't remember, kind of details. Anyway, I'll post this. It might be interesting to apply some of these keywords as you're creating stuff. It'd be interesting to see if there's any overlap in this world and the stock library mindset.
Well, one of the things the stock library folks are really upset about is they used all those keywords against all those images so that it definitely helped the AI system figure out how it was going to sort those images out. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Really quick, somebody put in the chat, no Rumslag. I did do a Rumslag one And I said that to Alex, and I came back and forth. I want to go back really quick to talk about what you said, that the data collection, and the thing about MidJourney and ChatGPT as well is it's not encrypted data. It is so somebody could be capturing all these commands and putting it into their own server and creating. Yeah, so the data collection is pretty much open source at this point.
It is. Someone can totally capture it all. And the thing is that it is. I'm not doing things. I don't work on things that are top secret to do in there. And I think that with ChatGPT, which we're not talking about today, we will talk about more in the future. I think that I am. There's a lot of people upset about people putting code in, like their own code that is part of a large distro that is, people are throwing that in to get it to improve that, and that's problematic. But having it generate that as a piece, so many programming companies right now so many companies that have programmers, the programmers are using ChatGPT all the time. I'm using it all the time. I'm using it on images that don't matter. Like, I'm using it on things that I don't care if it's copywritten. I don't care if I put up something as a thumbnail, or if I put something in my Keynote document, I don't care if it's copywritten. And I think that there is a massive interest. So a lot of times people look at folks that are established media folks look at, well, how are they using the copywritten material, and how am I going to make money with it, and how am I going to, protect it, and how and I think that we're getting, what we may be running into is that may be an older conversation that may not be as relevant as we move forward, because there's a lot of people that just need images for what they're doing and they don't really care, and so the thing is that, and I think that that's the whole thing, that the one place I would not want to be, I think there's a lot of things to stay busy at, and I think if you're good at what you do, you can keep working, but I would not want to own stock photography. like I would not want that to be my business, because the thing that I found that I immediately don't need anymore is stock photography. If I need something more than stock photography, I take it myself. But now MidJourney, it takes me a little time to turn it over, but especially after iStock got bought by Getty and kind of ruined, a lot of us have just kind of we were looking for something else, and I think a lot of us found it. Next question.
This comes from Bobby Rafferty in Central Florida. Currently, generative art costs compute as a loss leader. What are your thoughts on that? Users are needed for the machine learning, modeling, training, and processing.
Go, John.
The next two questions are very, very similar. So every week, Dave Holtz, who's the CEO of MidJourney, and you probably remember him. He's the company that build those paddles for 3D.
He looks like every hippie hipster you've ever seen.
So every Wednesday at noon, he comes on Discord and does what he calls office hours. Yeah. And he specifically talked about these next two questions. Everything that they're doing now is a loss leader, but how much does it cost to build an audience of 10 million people?
Yeah.
And so, yes, they're building audience, and they are spending a lot of money on compute. He goes over this in this meeting.
I think that I think OpenAI is doing really great with ChatGPT, but a lot of us got really, this was like when you look at this, I think this was the mistake. Maybe not a mistake. Maybe they'll do better. I don't know. But DALL-E 2 got us all excited, but there was no way to use it. And that was the opportunity that MidJourney was able to capitalize on, which was that we all got excited about DALL-E 2, and then they were so constrictive. If we go back in 10 years, if MidJourney's the big thing and DALL-E, we don't know what the story is going to be. You don't know what the story is going to be today until you're 10 years out. But 10 years out, if DALL-E 2 just kind of disappears into the background and MidJourney's the big one, it's because of the way they rolled it out. They rolled it out, they got people excited, and then they wouldn't let them use it. And what happened was, that's what I did. I was really excited about DALL-E 2, and then I just immediately signed up for MidJourney, because MidJourney is a place that I could actually do it. And then we were off to the races. And now I go back to DALL-E, because it doesn't have the same cycle speed now that MidJourney does. I go back to DALL-E and I put stuff in, and I'm not as happy with it. And so I think that it's a really interesting, situation there as far as that goes. I think ChatGPT, of course, made up for all of that, so far of letting, I think, and I don't know whether they learned from that or whether they're just two different models, but it was a really interesting move there. Next question.
Clive Kitchener from Soak, BC. Can you give us an idea of the size and scope of MidJorney? What does it take in the way of computing power and servers to satisfy demands?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, they've broken Discord a few times, right? Because they're the busiest server on all of Discord.
It's the biggest server by a long shot, not by a little. Like it's going to get to a point where it's like the same size as all the other Discords combined.
So there's two cards that they use for this. It's an A100 and an H100. The A100s are selling for about $12,000 per card, and the H's are in the $30,000. Yeah. And they're building racks and racks and racks of these. And he talks about this too on that same meeting every Wednesday at noon Pacific.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
Was I in there again?
You were. We can skip it, Jeffrey.
And it all goes back to that data collection. I talked about the text. If it didn't have the text in there, there'd be a lot less reduxes of images because you wouldn't have that annoying stuff in there. But I have a feeling that they're also data collecting it. So there's going to be a point where they're going to get enough data at one point where things can kind of settle down, and their hardware won't be as important to push. But then it'll be an ebb and flow type thing.
I think it'll get much worse because right now we're doing relatively low quality images, and they're not broken up into sections, and there's so many other features they're going to have to keep on adding to stay competitive that it's the compute power that's required. I think it'll just get more expensive for people to use it on a professional level, but I think that the compute power is going to go through the roof. A reminder to everyone watching, we're probably not going to get to all the questions. I wasn't sure how popular a Tuesday would be talking about MidJorney. The answer is yes, very popular. So make sure to jump in there and vote on the questions. I wouldn't probably add any more, but I would vote on those questions to make sure that you can prioritize as producers what we're actually going to answer. Next question.
This comes from Rick Markley of Baraboo, Wisconsin, who is on our panel. Has anyone been utilizing other AIs to enhance, augment, or supplement their MidJorney art?
Go ahead, Rick.
So yeah, I kind of mentioned some earlier where I'm using like a stable diffusion to in-paint or outpaint, but I've also been using it to like generate depth maps and things like that from like Looking Glass Portrait, and even using them as a limited movement backgrounds for my virtual production stage that I'm working on, just to give myself just a little bit of movement and things like that. So I'm just curious what other people might be using for as well.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
So stability.ai is the last bastion of open source. OpenAI used to be open until Microsoft knocked on their door and gave them $10 billion. Now I call them closed AI.
Right.
Isn't it interesting how that works?
But wealthy AI.
So stability.ai and Emad, the CEO, is an amazing guy. They just raised $1 billion. Sorry, $100 million on $1 billion valuation, and they're open source. And if you go to huggingface.com or IO, I can't remember, you'll find hundreds and hundreds of other applications. We're running the stable diffusion on our own servers, and it's running great. It's not as good as MidJorney, but it's close.
Right. Jeffrey?
Not to, on the other end, bringing it into MidJorney, I've been using a lot of AI. It's been around for a few years now. It's called This Person Doesn't Exist. And you go to thispersondoesn'texist.com, thiscatdoesn'texist.com, thisHorsedoesn'texist.com. And it'll create an image of a person or cat or horse that does not exist. Then you could take those images and bring them into MidJorney. Some people say if you take similar images and you pile them up into your statement, it'll try and create a more succinct version of the image that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
It's not exactly MidJorney related, but I've been using Blockade Labs AI. If anybody's familiar with that, it's a free tool now to generate 360 skyboxes. So I can generate a skybox and
what's that called?
It's called Blockade Labs. I actually can show you a little demo here. So let's see here. So this is a skybox that I generated it. So there's a few different styles you can pick. Like you can choose your different styles here. You're limited to the number of text. I think it's like 400 characters, but you can generate it, and then you can click this little download button and download it. But yeah, you can generate the skyboxes.
Everybody that's had to render 3D models inside of something just went, I will jump to that website right now.
And right now it's free. So
yeah, it's great. Fantastic. Next question.
Comes from Alexander Knight in Vancouver, British Columbia. How did MidJourney develop its artistic style? All of the examples I've seen seem to have a very consistent style.
They've talked about that in some of those office hours that are there, that they really wanted it to be pleasing. They definitely have a style. I don't know exactly how they're doing the override, but definitely in version 3, and I noticed a big jump. Version 3 was very painterly, and I think version 4 kind of became a little bit more precise than version 3 was, and less painterly, but it definitely had a look, and they still have a look to what they look like. But that is a conscious decision to have it, as I said, they wanted to have a certain feel to it that was, and I guess how they described it was pleasing, that it should look like art that's there. But I think that it is interesting to see that process, and we'll see. It'll continue to evolve, I'm sure. And I think you'll end up with different AI solutions that have different feels to how they approach that. Next question.
This comes from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What types of problems can a skilled diffusionist solve for a client or potential client? Or is this AI art better applied to slide presentations to pitch to clients?
I'll go ahead, Rick.
I feel working with AI is kind of like talking to a sketch artist. If your vocabulary is larger, as far as like art terms, styles, artists, things like that, and you know of terms that are relevant to what the person is trying to achieve, I think that is beneficial. That someone could do better than just someone who doesn't have any sense of style or art capabilities. So if you're looking for something that's skeuomorphic, or you're looking for a certain type of art, or things like that, that's where I think someone who's I call myself a promptographer, can help guide AI to give you better results.
Yeah, that's great, promptographer. I like that. I think that I think that a lot of it is I'm using it on my own stuff right now because I just don't, because I want to get good at it, and I want to figure it out, and I enjoy it. But I do think that there's a lot of things that we would do for clients that don't matter. Like that don't, it doesn't matter whether they're copywritten, doesn't matter whether they're protected, doesn't matter whether, where in those areas it becomes, I think, really, really valuable. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I do like the fact that I can put together something and say, okay, I have an idea, I have this thought, and I want to be able to express it to somebody else, so I can do it within pictures. We were talking about the logos and stuff like that. I was creating a character for my website to kind of add to it. But what I would do is, one of these images, if I chose one of these images to be part of that, I would then take it to somebody else that would then do a little bit more, because I can't recreate any of those 4 images in MidJourney a second time unless I use the seed. But I can't reposition them. I can't give them happy, sad images without having a completely different image that comes through. So that's where this comes in. You get the idea across, then they could take the ball and run from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as a concept art generator, it's super powerful. Go ahead, John.
Prompt engineering is going the way of the dodo bird. It's going to be obsolete. They're going to build that into the UI. It's going to be like writing DOS commands or doing grep or regular expression in Unix. It's over.
In a while. But it's going to be a while. But still, but I think that might be the argument against. You might be a diffusionist or a prompt. I don't know, a promptographer or prompt engineer, or But I think it's, to your point, is why I thought of a diffusionist, only because whatever happens next, it's going to be someone who can talk to the thing and make the thing happen. In that process. But yeah, I still like promptographer a lot. It's really good. Next question.
Comes from Christian Ortiz in South Florida. Has anyone tried exporting from one AI generator and importing that into another AI system? How were the results?
Good, Rick.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned a couple of times, I'm using other Stable Diffusion for in-painting and out-painting, generating depth maps. You can also do interesting things like infinite zooms, where you can take an image from MidJourney and then reduce it, and then kind of fill in the area around it, and then keep repeating that process to give yourself like an infinite zoom type effect. It's a pretty interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, I think combining AIs to enhance and augment other MidJourney art or whatever, I think it's very beneficial, and there's a lot of great applications for it. There's some really good results I've been getting.
Absolutely, John.
Alex, haven't been using Chat GPT to build your prompts and then feed those into Midjourney?
I've done a couple of them where I said, describe something, and I'll have Chat GPT describe it, and then I'll cut and paste that into Midjourney and have it generate it. And so there's kind of and I haven't done it yet, but I've been thinking about this idea of some other people are building books and so on and so forth, but the idea of taking a lot of having Chat GPT build a story, and then grabbing sections out of the story and putting it into Midjourney to generate the images, and then put the images back and create a book without any, you're guiding it and you're talking about it. And a lot of times people, they're like, well, you're not actually doing it. There's a lot of artists that aren't actually doing it. Just to be clear, what this is the democratization of other people doing your artwork until, that you have a vision for. If you're a director, you're not the cinematographer, you're not the camera operator, you're thinking about those things, and you're saying, I want to have this thing done. I want to move this over here. I want this to feel a certain way. And when I worked with lots of artists I have a sculptor that I know that has 30 or 40 sculptors. He outlines what he wants them to get to. So they cut away a lot of the rock for him. And then he comes in and finishes it because he's really good at what he does. And he finishes it, but he doesn't have to go through the week of cutting granite to get to the point where he wants to do his last little touch to it that makes it his. But he draws it out and he figures it out. It's somebody else is doing that and they're learning how to sculpt, and eventually they'll go do it themselves. But someone else doing something for you has been happening for a long time. So that it's just that now we have a machine to do it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I've done Chat GPT going into AI. I've done, like I said, this person doesn't exist into AI, and I've even tried the same thing that Marcus Brownlee did with his YouTube, where he took the YouTube video, downloaded it, and uploaded. Mm-hmm. I did with an image to see how that would work. From there, so it doesn't have as much of an impact as the video did, but it's very interesting to see how it changes, how it interprets the new data.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, Courtney.
Yes, since ChatGPT can write code, you can say write code, in a certain style. Can't you load that information into ChatGPT to draw in the style of Midjourney using the dash commands?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Jason. I can't hear you, Jason, but your sync is amazing. Okay, next question.
This comes from Ronnie Hofsey in Tromsø, Norway. Our current workflow for getting higher resolution images from Midjourney is to upscale them, then use the super zoom neural filter in Photoshop. Are there any alternatives to this you would recommend? Let's say 4K stills from Midjourney?
Go ahead, Rick.
I use Topaz Labs Gigapixel, and that does an amazing job. I really like its output.
Yeah, go, John.
Right on the money. Exactly what Rick said. They don't do that because of the power that it takes to create those images. That's why.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
And once again, you can use that seed function. So you can create lower res images and put a seed number to it, and then go back and then use the same seed number and then put it in a higher resolution, up to 8K, I believe.
One thing I found is I don't think it ever renders 8K. I don't think it ever renders more than 1920 by something or other. It's 2048 by 2048 is the biggest I've ever seen do it. And recently it hasn't done that resolution. Next question.
Comes from Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas. What is the role and value of Midjourney events, like the one coming up at 5 p.m. today with Peter Mohrbacher, listed in the Midjourney Discord?
It's building a community. It's building a bunch of people and having them understand why it's going on and having them be able, because it's not just, the problem that you have is that you got to sell this to the world. And so you want to have other people understand it as well, because they're talking to their friends and their family and they're defending it and they're talking through it, and having them really understand it is super important. So I think that they should do an event every day. If I were them, I do an event every day. But if I were them, I would definitely do an event every day with that size of an audience. It would be amazing. Next question.
Comes from Douglas Carmichael. What class of server hardware would you need to self-host Midjourney or Midjourney-like tools?
Go ahead, John.
So we have two platforms. We've got one PC running a 4070 card running Stable Diffusion on that platform, but we also have the Jetson individual box by NVIDIA. NVIDIA had their event in March last year, and the whole thing was related to AI, and I couldn't figure out why they would made this huge move. Now I know why.
Absolutely. Next question.
It's Rick Markley from Baraboo, Wisconsin. What interesting applications or uses have people been using their AI-generated artwork for?
Go ahead, Rick.
So I mentioned a couple of things, but one of my favorites is I've been doing a lot of character creator animations with some friends for TikToks, and I love using it to create different backgrounds and sets and things to quickly switch between. The whole Etsy. I created an Etsy shop to do some, passive income while I'm just kind of sleeping. Haven't sold anything yet, but that's the idea, is to eventually get to that point. But also, I've been trying to work with like DID, which is like it takes still images of faces to animate them into characters. So we could take like a character generated in Midjourney and animate them. Same with like the looking glass portrait, using the depth to create interesting depth images on looking glass and other applications.
Yeah. Jeffrey?
I've had some fun when somebody's on Facebook and they post something. I'll take that text and I'll put it into Midjourney, and then I'll make an image and I'll send it back to them. It's kind of like their own little gift right there. I've also done it where I've prompted people. I said, "Hey, give me one word in comments, and then I'll make a big Midjourney about it." So I get a whole bunch of comments, single words, and then I put it into its own keyword phrase, and then create an image. That was pretty fun.
I don't think I'll ever make cards again either. I made Christmas cards. We talked about it at some other point, where for my family, and so what I did is I thought of that person, of what they'd be interested in. I had Santa doing this thing. So with my son, my son, I had like he really likes molecular engineering, and so I had Santa doing molecular engineering. My daughter, he was playing the bass because that's what she plays. My dad, he was a lawyer. My brother, he was golfing because my brother runs a golf course. And so for each person, I just thought of that. My mom's from Arizona, so I had it. It was Santa pulling he was on donkeys pulling reindeer, but had like a stagecoach, going through the desert, with stuff on it, which was really funny. So anyway, so all of these different things, and it was so much fun, and people got so much out of it. The only thing that was missing is I didn't print them on cards and send them, which will happen next year. like I'm definitely figuring out how to print the cards, because it was just really, really fun. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsey from Tromsø, Norway is back. The no command has given us a few challenges. For instance, we've been using Midjourney to generate logo concepts and want to avoid text in the generations, but the no text command seems to be ignored. Any suggestions?
Go, Jeffrey.
That's the $1 million question right there. As we've already talked about, no works like if you wanted to, let's say I wanted a pond, no frogs. That's where the no command comes in. When it comes to text, it's just I'm not exactly sure how they're figuring that all in, because once again, it's just a bunch of jumbled letters and it just ruins an image.
Yeah, I really think that it's because it's additive. It's going and grabbing things and adding them. Taking them out is not something that the algorithm does, and so it's very, very difficult. I find that no doesn't work anywhere consistently. If I'm doing it, I can't take things out. Now I can say things like, again, we were talking about this before. If I say no faces, I may or may not get no faces. But if I say without faces, it will not have it there. And so, or faceless. The faceless is going to be, so you want to think about a positive term that is going to describe what you don't want to have there. But no text is hard, and Jeffrey's right. It's frustrating when you create something cool and you've got text in there that you have to Photoshop out, and you have to be very good at Photoshop. We're just going to improve our Photoshop skills. There's probably a lab there of fixing. We have a lab coming. I can see it, of fixing your Midjourney images in after hours. so I think that might be a good one. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsey from Tromsø, Norway is back. The no command has given us a few challenges. For instance, we've been using Midjourney to generate logo concepts and want to avoid text in the generations, but the no text command seems to be ignored. Any suggestions? The Chad Lafarge from Columbia, Missouri asks, can you generate a character with seed and then create a series of images using the same character?
Go ahead, John.
You can't do that directly, but they talk about this, and Rick maybe can talk about this more. But I see people generating characters just like we used to do in Flash, where people are animated. So you create the first one keyframe, and then the second one keyframe, etc. I'm seeing people do that right now.
Yeah, good. Rick?
So, I'm just getting into it, but there's something called ControlNet for Stable Diffusion that I'm starting to dabble with. And that allows you to give, like, you can change colors and backgrounds and control lighting with an existing image. And I'm just starting to get into it. So hopefully I'll have more on that next time we have another meeting. But that seems like it has some good promise where you can upload an image and then give it some, have it change the lighting, but it still keeps the image pretty much the same, or it can.
Next question.
Paul Terry Wallace from Austin, Texas. Are there any ethical issues with Midjourney artwork?
Go, John.
I don't know if ethics is the right word there. They're currently in litigation, so we'll find out what's going to happen with their lawsuit. They did build their model with a bunch of artwork that was on the web, and so we'll see what happens to that case.
Yeah, I think threatening the case was useful. I think running the case is a huge risk, because if they once there's precedent, I mean, if it gets to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court goes, it's okay, there'll be $1 trillion invested in this in a year. Like, it'll just be that, the gates will just open up, so they're, I think that everyone was staying out of this because they were afraid of getting sued. If it knocks it down, I think it's going to be very hard to knock it down completely, because by the time it gets to the Supreme Court, everyone's going to use it in their everyday life. It's going to be very, very hard to unwrap that. And if it gets affirmed, it's over. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsey from Tromsø, Norway. Is there any difference in the order you place the images using the /blend function?
Go ahead, John.
The blend command is fairly new within the last couple of weeks. What I've been doing is taking 2 images and doing a composite. It's a great parlor trick. I do it for love children at high school reunions, or sitting at the bar with 2 people, and it's really, really fun. I did Ronald McDonald and Wendy's love child. It came out fantastic.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
And I think there is a wait command in Blend. I have to double check to make sure what it is. But just like with the image where you do the : 1 to 5, I think you can do that with Blend.
Yeah. I will say, by the way, there's a bar that wants to be made somewhere that is just sitting around and doing Midjourney and having it show up on the walls, and having a prompt thing or whatever. I have a friend that has a bar, and I keep on telling him, you need to build this out, because it just would be so much fun. Every time we sit around, doing this together as a friend, people start throwing things out. We'll do some more after-hour stuff where we do that as well. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, with the artist-driven class action lawsuit against the creator of Midjourney, do you think we'll see it and tools like it go the way of Napster? And there's a link.
I think we want to remember that Napster still broke the industry. It didn't matter. By the time Napster was gone, it didn't matter. I'm not too concerned about which brand gets the horses out of the gate. There's not going to be any putting this back. You can't stuff it all back in now. So the thing is that I just don't think it's going to go away. It may not be Midjourney, maybe they lose, but there's no way to stop it at this point. So I think people have to figure out how they're going to work with it, as opposed to how they're going to stop it, because it's not going to go away. Next question.
And this is Paul Terry Wallace from Austin, Texas. Is there any kind of showcase online for Midjourney artwork?
There is. It's in Discord. So in the Discord showcase, you want to go, there's so many showcases in Discord. So in the Midjourney Discord server, there are tons of showcases, and there's the all kinds of artwork. And not only are they there, but the search terms are there. And it's the best study guide to what you're doing that you could possibly have. So that is one of the genius things that Midjourney did, was allowing us to see other people's work and incentivizing people by allowing them to do it, to throw those search terms in and exposing that to everyone so that they can look at them. A lot of times I look at something, I go, oh, that's really cool. I just literally just cut and paste that search term out. I put it into my own thing, and I change a couple terms that I want to change. I want this, but I want to have it be this subject, and I'll just throw it in and start making my own. And I think that like TikTok, I think you have a whole lot of people that aren't really that concerned about people copying them, or if you are, like my search terms in MidJourney are private because I pay for that. And so I pay to say I want the stuff that I'm doing personally to be my own, but you have to pay extra for that. So that's the incentive that they create to keep that from actually, to allow people to see what everybody's doing. Anyway, it's good. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I was just going to say the one that I showed earlier, a MidJourney Community Showcase. This does not require a Discord
right.
membership or anything. So this is exposed on the web, and so you can scroll through, and this changes daily. And these are well-developed images, and you just hover over them, and you can see the prompt that generated it. So you can learn a lot from this and the person who generated it. So you can maybe find that person to look at some more of their generated art, and it's free and accessible.
It's great. We're probably going to come back to this, and talk about it, especially as things change, as there's updates. I think version 5 is close, isn't it? Is version 5 close? I think for MidJourney, we don't know. I've heard that it's close, so we'll see. There is a scenario.gg is doing a big AI or game asset AI get together. I think they just announced it last night. During Game Developers Conference, I did ping them and say, "Hey, do you want to stream that live?" Because it's already sold out. Like it was like done. So I'm going to see if they want to stream it, but we'll see what happens there. But there's a lot of them to track. We're going to keep tracking it. This is a big part of the future of our business. So expect to have a conversation about AI in some way, shape, or form, whether it's ChatGPT or MidJourney or other things. Probably about once a month, while we keep on tracking it. At least once a quarter, if not once a month, we'll be talking about this because it definitely is. It's an important piece of our business. We've traveled 96,000 miles, 96,900 miles, 155,000 miles, or kilometers, 155,000 kilometers. We almost made gold status on United today. United is not a sponsor, although I wish they would be. I would love some extra for some free tickets for all the flying I do on their airline. We travel. That's 877 million bananas for scale. So we a lot of bananas there today, 3.9 times around the Earth. So we covered a lot of ground. Great work to everyone. Thanks so much to the producers for all the great questions that you asked today. And thanks to the panelists, of course. We can't do this without you. And thanks to the incredible team every day that gets up here and puts together this show. It's a small village that wakes up every morning, 7 days a week, and figures out how we put out such a great show. And we just really appreciate all the work of the people that are developing the tools, people who are using the tools, the people who are thinking about the tools. There's a big team that makes that happen, and we just really appreciate all your work. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours.
So long, and thanks for the fish.
Fish?
Fish.
I don't understand that, but
okay. Job healing. Maybe you ought to have Discord draw 18 million bananas surrounding the Earth.
I did that once.
Come on.
I did that once. Alex has the image.
Do MidJourney stuff, and then at the end we'll show some image that's based on something we talked about. That's what I do at MacBreak. You'll see me do it today. I find some subject that we talked about, and then I put it in. And then it ends up as the thumbnail. So,
imagine a world.
In a world.
It's really hard to do that while whispering at the same time. That's all I have to say. I would leave right now, but I can't figure out what computer my mouse is on. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, I'm lost too.